Okay, well, the new troops have been positioned, and again, the Mamluks have just so much more that they can put on the board. There's almost nothing troop-wise that the Christians have, and they're trickling their Armenians in, taking some reductions, but the other stuff, it hasn't taken losses. They just don't have the manpower possible to face what they're looking at. It's a matter of waiting for the crusade or waiting for the Mongols, but the Mongols have gotten a lot weaker. Well, the Muslims open up by denuding Aleppo, which is pretty safe unless the Mongols enter the game, in which case we'd probably want to face them, and combining a stack up there at the Siege of Antioch. Plans to allow Baibur to come down and start taking stuff. The Christians then play the Prince Edward of England card. Now this is removed, but it means Edward's crusade will take place, and he has to land in a port. He'll land down here in Tripoli. And, well, plans are to kind of combine with Hugh and maybe be able to oppose Baibur in some way. I don't know how effective that's going to be. But while I was looking, I found something kind of interesting. I see a Frederick II counter that I haven't seen in a scenario, and I don't see a card for. That's kind of interesting. Maybe they're planning on releasing some of these additional scenarios, maybe a fantasy Frederick II scenario, to take advantage of, his crusade that didn't really fight. All right, on. And after Baibur's lays siege to Latakia, and there's no blockade there, but he needs to take a castle. He could have gotten it just by luck, but now that number's up so high that he needs to actually go through the siege procedure and then push forward. Well, Edward received some reinforcements from Crusaders arrive. Someone who outranks him, strangely enough. He's willing to follow whoever this is, a 314 leader. They're just pulled out. It's got to be those values. And 3 more Crusaders. So we're getting quite a powerful crusading army, and Baiburs is beginning to get a little worried. He may break his siege and actually give up Antioch temporarily in order to try to give up the siege on Antioch, in order to try to cope with these Christian Crusaders. And indeed, he swung down through Margat. Hugh went hiding in the castle, so he just continued on up here, gathered more troops, and hit what's his name, Theobald or whatever, and then ended up laying siege to Tripoli because his movement was done. For the Christian player, they came out of Antioch and launched an attack, kind of parody there. The Muslims only even won the battle because of a feigned flight action, which it was going to be tied at 6 losses each, and they ended up taking 1 less and causing 1 more to the Crusaders. The turn ends with Baiburs running down in this direction, trying to get a castle to surrender. Well, he's racked his penalty up to 3. He's taking refuge at Jerusalem. Part of his force is still going to have to disband. He's got more than, I think, 6 units there, but not a lot more. Alternatively, he was out of cards for some time. The Christians were able... Actually, yeah, that's not going to help. The Christians were able to take a couple of actions in a row, and they gathered their forces and then struck down back at Crac des Chevaliers, which was reduced, and tried to get that to surrender. It didn't, but they played a winter campaign, which means nothing has to demobilize from there. It's all in command, so it's all good. We've seen several attempts to break this siege. Now, I think the Muslims are going to pull out of there if they can, just because there's nothing left. There's no troops left there. There's no real reason to blockade it anymore except to prevent units from being placed there. Kind of iffy. I'll see how the roll goes and make my decision there. But if they get out of there, it resets the siege counter, and it's going to be a lot lower, I think. There's still good leaders, though. And if there are troops there, it's still going to be an ugly number. Yeah, the Muslims had the right to stay at Antioch, but the choice was to reposition them. They can put them down in Damascus, where maybe they can do some good. We got a problem, though, if the crusading army is recapturing stuff. And that's kind of a painful situation, too. So I got to keep an eye on everything here. Good chance, though, that I'll be able to take Acre if some kind of defense isn't made of that. Now, Bohemond is not a Jerusalem king, so he can't go down there. So, yeah, that's kind of where we have it. Now, as we roll into this third turn, if Edward were the only Crusader Lord, if we hadn't gotten this other guy who's kind of lording it over the King of England, the Christians would have initiative. But they do not, because they win the ties, I believe. But they lose it because the leader they have, who's in charge, is a 3-point strategy leader, whereas Baibars is a 1. That gives Baibars the chance to do something right off the bat. Now the question is, what kind of thing does he want to do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He can get within striking range of those Crusaders and scare them away. That doesn't gain him anything. He won't be picking up new points there. Antioch isn't growing, but I think... See, here's the problem. I don't want to lose that city. So what I've got to do is I've got to get at least one step into Antioch. I can do this with these. I've got a couple Armenian troops I can swing in, but there's really not a lot there. So unless the Mongols come in, it looks again like I think the Muslims are going to have the upper hand here. But I got Baibars in the wrong place. He's too far, unless I get a forced march or something, to hit the Crusader army. On the other hand, there's Acre. That's a pretty ripe and tasty treat sitting there without a lot of defenses. Okay, things were kicked off in a kind of interesting fashion. First, the Muslim player played Heretics Cause Unrest over here in Acre. The Christians had a couple options. Abandon their siege and go down and try to defend Acre because it's worth more. Or, hey, maybe I can break that siege. I got a pretty big army. They chose to go ahead with the siege, reduce the resistance factor to 0 over the Cractus Chevaliers, but the Muslims played an epidemic. Now remember, this has a B in it, and I seem to remember it actually is supposed to be played both ways, but that's certainly how I apply it, because the epidemic should be able to start on either side, and then it spreads to the other side potentially. But in this particular case, it really wiped out that Crusader army. They still took the Cractus Chevaliers, but now they're not going to be able to have any real chance of relieving Acre without at least getting some more troops. That's a bad thing for them, because they're going to lose overall in the points shift for this turn. So as the Christians pull the Armenians down, they still don't have a diplomatic card to bring the Mongols into play. Acre falls nearly without a fight. I did an assault, but they rolled and did no damage. 1 point of damage was done to them. That's a major victory. That's enough, no matter how many troops were in there, but of course it would be very unlikely with a lot of troops to get a major victory. It surrenders. There was only 1 unit in there. And we can see the Christian dead piles getting to be a real burden on them. They already had few enough troops, and now they have almost nothing. Well, Baibars, the Christians managed to bring their Armenians and Antiochians down here to Tortosa, and then Baibars marched up and launched an attack into the Cractus Chevaliers, where the main Crusader army is. The Christians were hoping to get some more reinforcements before they have a card for it, before facing the enemy. But they went with an intercept, and oops, I didn't cause enough casualties. think they owe one more casualty to the Muslims. But anyway, the battle rolls, well, they were even in size, but Baibars is a very, very good leader, and that nameless crusading leader, who's now dead, is not. And it was a major victory, wiped out the Crusaders. No, didn't even have to roll pursuit. Got him and Hugh dead. Bohemond got away. Edward and our Armenian leader are both prisoners. And things look pretty dim at this point for the Crusaders. And the Christians in general. All right, onward. And Christians are throwing away cards. They have nothing they can do with them. They just have these forces. They brought some new troops in at Antioch. But Baibars has just marched down the coast and taken almost everything. Everything except Jaffa down here. Point-wise, I've got 43 to 25. That's 1 point more than the game started with. So somebody's stolen a point. I'm not sure who. I don't think there was a card that gave a victory point yet. So, to some extent, we know we're 1 point off right now. And I just don't know what happened. I lost, somebody gained an extra point somewhere. But, yeah, one thing that's going to be tricky is remembering who's got what of the original crusading, the Templar and Hospitaller, the original order castles. I mean, I have to look that up. There's no way to mark that on the map. There's no special marker. I should probably have a little, a chit down on those things. But anyhow, I guess I could count the Crusader points. There aren't many of those. And see if they're at the if they're at the correct level, then I penalize the Muslims a point. Anyway, we'll finish up this turn. There isn't much to go because of the Muslims' final card isn't going to allow them to do anything. Might as well reveal it. The Christians are just going to be throwing cards as far as I can tell. This is Death of Hulego. He's going to... Now remember, he's away dealing with the Golden Horde, but now Abaka is going to come in as a Mongol leader. And this would neutralize them if they were pro-Christian. But in a sense, this is a pro-Christian event at this particular time, because it kind of says, well, at least there's going to be a leader down here. One of the problems with the Mongols is there's no leader anymore. And after demobilization, well, what we see, still no Christians and a lot of Muslim units on the board. It looks really, really bad until the Crusade is going to come in on turn 6. Kind of funny, there aren't any real reshuffles coming up here. It's as though it's kind of scripted in the sense that, hey, all the cards are going to come out and they're going to come out once before anything else comes out. There's mandatory events. I don't remember if the Crusade Diverted was mandatory, but if it is, it almost ensures that you're going to have a historical path in this scenario. In a way that I don't know if it fits as well with the rest of the game. I kind of like the looseness of some of the other scenarios where things can be really shaken up. Christians are going to have to make a big decision. Do they want one of their leaders back? If they give a card, they get one. Otherwise, they could give up some resources. At least I think to take Hugh back, he's probably worth it. As replacement points they'd be giving up there. There's not a lot left to the Kingdom of Jerusalem, though. Well, there's Cyprus, that's safe. Alright. Well, I tried to figure out the points. And when I counted everything specifically, I didn't come up with the amount of points they claim. And I mean, I tried several times. The Crusaders having something like 27 initially. No, the Crusaders, the Crusaders started with 40 and the Muslims with 27. That would be 67 points. Right now I'm at 68. how I had it figured. When I counted everything specifically, I ended up with less, significantly less. I think like 64. I don't know where the other 4 points could come from. That's almost the amount of points the Mongol castles have. But they have Edessa too, and it just doesn't make any sense. And yes, I'm counting in the orders points, etc. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. The extra point, in a sense, gives the Christians an advantage, and if it's a Muslim extra point, it doesn't really help anyone, I don't think. We'll see. If it comes down to where it looks like it's close, I don't know what I'll do. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this and send it off.